Telling these feelings I lost in the feeling, and she said that she didn't mean to say. But Johnny said what he wanted to say, but he looked away with every single word, just to hurt you back. When I knew, call me crazy, it's true. And on it goes. It's the human condition, no intention. The eyes, the eyes, the eyes, the eyes. Human condition, no intention.
Hello and welcome to our very first podcast episode on the Unqualified Critics Club. I'm Rehanjo.
And I am Sebastian, and today we'll be diving into the beautiful world of surrealism.
So to do this, we are going to focus on one of its masterpieces, so Unqualified. So
How do you pronounce that? Chin.
No man, Shin. Shin.
Chien.
Andalo.
Un chien andalou.
So this 1929 film, brought to life by the minds of filmmaker Louis Bernal and artist Salvador Dali, so that's pretty unique, is a shining example of how art can tap into the subconscious and unleash something truly magical.
Through a mixture of dreamlike imagery and boundary-pushing techniques, Un Chien Andalou has left an incredible mark on the history of film.
We believe it is a complete inundation of the subconscious and also a rebellion against the logical. And we're here for it.
Love that.
The Unqualified Critics Club.
So I think it is because of this alchemic fusion of art and the subconscious that Unqualified is praised for its creative and revolutionary approach to filmmaking. I mean, it's absolutely something that we've never seen before, and maybe the people of that time even.
The plot of The Andalusian Dog is highly symbolic and extremely open for interpretation. The main plot follows the protagonist, played by Pierre Batchev, as he embarks on a surreal journey. The surrealistic film portrait of the human condition follows a dreamlike sequence of images and their meanings that appear detached from linear cause and effect, making the film one of the earliest examples of non-linear filmmaking. This is done through seamless transition scenes and the intentional inclusion of repetitive motifs.
So, which according to Bordwell and Thompson actually creates unity and coherence in a film, and I think this film actually tried to go against any semblance of unity and coherence, but they actually managed to do it quite well. So these motifs take shape through symbols. So firstly we have the severed hand, which the film opens with, where he sharpens a razor before cutting the eye of the woman. So this act can be interpreted as a symbolic castration, which is reinforced by the appearance of a severed hand on the sidewalk later in the film. So the hand can be seen as a metaphor for impotence and emasculation. Then we have the ants crawling out of this hand. So the ants crawling out of the hand can be seen as a metaphor for decay and decomposition. The hand, which represented power and control, is now being consumed by smaller and weaker beings. Then we have, of course, the piano scene. So this scene where a man drags two grand pianos loaded with donkeys and priests and pianists, and it can be interpreted as a critique of the bourgeoisie culture. So the piano, a symbol of high culture, is juxtaposed by the grotesque and macabre imagery. Let's talk about the themes a little bit.
Yeah.
I think like a lot of surrealism, you can see the same themes kind of repeating in this film. So we're dealing with death quite a bit, beauty, and the duality of the divine and the human spirit.
In accordance with the principles of the surrealist movement, its narrative power is derived from abstract expression, provoking the audience's emotions, thoughts, and understanding the real world.
This leaves one to wonder if the artists themselves had this detachment to their own work when making the film.
I think it's a question that we need to ask as well is, was every image that you see in the film very thought out and considered, or were they just was the way of making the film just as non-linear as what is perceived on screen? Were the artists also detached from their work?
Were they thinking about the cause and effect, or were they just thinking about the imagery?
Or were they also just like going crazy? Exactly.
Well, I think it's prevalent in what Salvador Dali actually said about himself, that at the moment of painting that he did not understand his own images, but he said that does not mean that the images didn't have meaning. On the contrary, he said that their meanings were so profound, so complex, so coherent and involuntary, I love that word, that it escapes the most simple analysis of the logical intuition.
Wouldn't you say the film is better described as being inundated by the subconscious and should be viewed as such? if you try to understand it in a more logical sense, you're kind of missing the whole
Yeah,
like
the point.
idea. Exactly. Do you know why the film was made?
Well, actually, yeah, it was created in response to a social and artistic atmosphere which was becoming increasingly conformist and safe. And I think they didn't want to be safe anymore. I think this is established immediately where we don't get the typical on-stage introduction
Yeah.
of the characters or the scenes. Instead, there's kind of like this cutting back and forth between shots of this man and woman.
Engaging in a range of surreal events and disjointed content. Mates actually, I think it was Mates, called this the estrangement effect.
Yeah.
And he states that it's used by the directors to create distance between the audience and the film, allowing them to observe and reflect on the actions in a short, intellectual, emotional abstraction type of way. And then as a result, they utilize a number of novice cinematographic
Oh
techniques.
yes, let's talk about the cinematography. I mean, that's what we're here for.
One of these techniques was the use of long takes. As you can see, like in the film, there are an extreme. There's not a lot of cuts that happen in the film. This enabled the two filmmakers to create an atmosphere of like slow, deliberate pacing, and it encourages the audience to consider the imagery as it passes them by in a slow manner.
So the viewer's power to make whole meaning out of the film's disparate images is hindered by the film's inner logic, as it seemingly shifts from scene to scene at random.
This confusion kind of leads the viewer to experience what Schnaubelt calls a contemplative state, which intensifies the film's ability to convey its abstract meaning. So the mocking juxtaposition of the images is symbolic of the surrealistic approach.
Yes.
And it allows the film to explore connections between the dreamlike state and the reality in a way which many would consider to be coherent, mostly because the directors use what is known as a unified style, where
visual
shots
style.
tend to have the same mood and
So it depicts
yes.
the continuous experience.
Exactly.
So it is actually considered. So that makes me wonder that first thing that we said, were they detached from the images?
Exactly.
They might not have been. It seems very considered. So the score that was added to the film later was composed by Richard Wagner. Those who are into the classical music will appreciate that. The use of classical music in Unchen Anderlo is unexpected because we're dealing with these very modern imagery, but it adds an ironic twist and a playful tone to the film's imagery.
I mean, you do need a little bit of convention to realize, okay, that this is unconventional,
Yes, definitely.
like polarity.
Yeah.
Unchen Anderlo is a must-see for lovers of surrealistic art and experimentation in film. With its creative and revolutionary approach to filmmaking, the film is widely considered to be one of the greatest works of art from the surrealist movement.
Unchen Anderlo can be said to have embodied Bordwell and Thompson's criteria of originality, complexity, intense of effect, and coherence. Its use of surrealism, editing, and cinematography provided a unique contrast to traditional film narratives of the time and allowed it to explore ideas of dream and reality in an emotionally charged and coherent manner. If you are a filmmaker yearning to break the rules and explore the medium like us, this film is a cardinal teaching opportunity if you have an open mind. Thank you so much for joining us on the
listening.
Unqualified Critics Club. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe. Bye.